The story of World War II, a conflict that engulfed the globe from 1939 to 1945, is a story of humanity at its most destructive and, paradoxically, at its most resilient. It was a war fought on every continent and every ocean, drawing in millions of soldiers and civilians and reshaping the very map of the world. It began officially with a single act of aggression, the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany on September 1st, 1939. This was not the cause, but the spark in a world saturated with the fuel of unresolved grievances, economic desperation, and the rise of aggressive, expansionist ideologies. It was the culmination of 2 decades of simmering anger and political failure. To grasp the scale of catastrophe, look back to the uneasy peace after the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles planted seeds of bitterness, especially in a defeated Germany. Reparations, territorial losses, and blame created national humiliation, fertile ground for extremism that would set the world ablaze. The First World War was supposed to be the war to end all wars, but its conclusion laid a treacherous foundation for an even greater conflict. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to prevent another war, yet bred resentment in Germany. Massive financial reparations, enforced disarmament, and lost territories at home and overseas, along with a war guilt clause that seared national pride. The Great Depression magnified bitterness with hyperinflation, unemployment, poverty, and despair. Democratic governments seemed weak. Simple answers seduced the desperate. Authoritarian rule, military strength, and aggressive nationalism surged. In Italy, Benito Mussolini promised a return to imperial glory. In Germany, Adolf Hitler offered scapegoats and the restoration of national honor. He rebuilt the military and promised Lebensraum through eastern expansion. In Japan, militarists, lacking resources, looked to dominate Asia, especially China. The League of Nations proved powerless. Manchuria in 1931, Ethiopia in 1935. Each unchecked aggression emboldened dictators, proving the world would not or could not stop them. Appeasement sought peace, but Hitler's appetite for conquest was insatiable. As tensions mounted, aggressor nations formed the Axis through the Rome-Berlin Axis, the Anti-Comintern Pact, and the Tripartite Pact. Opposing them stood the Allies, Great Britain and France, bound to defend Poland, soon joined by the wider Commonwealth and many nations. In spring 1940, France fell. Britain stood alone for a perilous year. Germany pioneered blitzkrieg, speed, surprise, overwhelming force, tanks with Stuka dive bombers to shatter front lines. Poland fell in weeks, struck by Germany from the west and the USSR from the east. A winter lull, then the storm returned. Denmark and Norway were struck to secure sea lanes and iron ore. On May 10, 1940, German armor sliced through the Ardennes, bypassing the Maginot Line. The speed overwhelmed Allied command. Panzers reached the Channel in 10 days. The British Expeditionary Force and French units were trapped at Dunkirk. Over 800 vessels, destroyers, fishing boats, yachts, ferries, crossed under constant attack. The miracle of Dunkirk evacuated over 338,000 troops, saving Britain's army. Heavy equipment was left behind. Paris fell on June 14. An armistice followed. Western Europe lay under Hitler's boot. Only the Channel separated Britain from invasion. Operation Sea Lion required control of the skies. Winston Churchill rallied a nation to its finest hour. The next battle would be fought entirely in the air. The Luftwaffe set out to destroy the RAF and clear the way for invasion. What followed was the first great air battle, fought entirely in the skies. Britain's radar-linked Dowding system guided limited fighters with precision. Fighting over home meant pilots and planes could return. Despite losses, fighter command endured. Hitler shifted to terror-bombing cities, the Blitz, giving the RAF respite. As Churchill said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." By September, Germany had failed to gain air superiority. The invasion was postponed. Having failed to subdue Britain, Hitler struck east, Operation Barbarossa, June 22, 1941. 3 million Axis troops advanced along an 1,800-mile front, encircling entire Soviet armies. Autumn mud stalled the blitzkrieg. Winter froze men and machines before Moscow. In December, Soviet counterattacks threw the Germans back. The quick victory had failed. On December 7th, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, tactically stunning, strategically disastrous. The United States entered the war. Germany and Italy declared war in turn. At Midway, June 1942, U.S. code-breaking enabled an ambush. 4 top Japanese carriers lost, halting expansion and shifting the Pacific tide. In 1942, Hitler drove south for oil and Stalingrad. The battle descended into a savage urban struggle. Every street, every building, every room. Soviet defenders held a narrow strip along the Volga, supplied under fire. In November, Operation Uranus smashed weak Axis flanks and encircled the Sixth Army. Hitler forbade breakout. The airlift failed. Men starved and froze. In early February 1943, the remnants surrendered. Germany's aura of invincibility shattered. From then on, the Red Army pushed relentlessly toward Berlin. Meanwhile, Allied victories in North Africa set the stage for Italy. Sicily fell, then landings on the mainland forced Italy out of the war. Strategic bombing sought to cripple German industry and morale. The Western Allies prepared Operation Overlord, the most complex amphibious invasion ever attempted. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest armada in history set sail. 156,000 troops landed on 5 beaches. At Omaha, U.S. forces suffered heavy casualties yet secured a foothold. Weeks of hedgerow combat gave way to an American breakthrough, Operation Cobra. Paris was liberated in August by French and American forces. Allied armies swept across France and Belgium, reaching Germany's frontier. Hitler's last counterstroke in the Ardennes failed, exhausting final reserves. In spring 1945, the Allies crossed the Rhine. The Soviets fought into Berlin. The human cost was staggering, between 50 and 70 million dead, most of them civilians. The home front became a battlefield. Cities across Europe and Asia burned. The Holocaust, 6 million Jews and millions of others, murdered by a racial totalitarian ideology. It remains one of history's darkest chapters, demanding remembrance and understanding. War transformed daily life, rationing, total mobilization, and new roles for women. From Russian steppes to Burmese jungles and Pacific beaches, soldiers endured terror, mud, loss, and longing. On April 30th, Hitler committed suicide. Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, victory in Europe. In the Pacific, atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki as the USSR invaded Manchuria. Japan surrendered in August. The war ended on September 2nd. Allied victory owed to vast industrial might, manpower, and Axis strategic blunders on multiple fronts. It was forged by British resilience, Soviet sacrifice, American production, and courage in occupied lands. After the horrors, the world confronted war crimes at Nuremberg and redefined human rights. The United Nations was formed to promote peace, security, and cooperation. The war accelerated technology, jets, computing, and social change, expanding women's roles. Empires shattered. The US and USSR rose, ideological rivals in a new Cold War. The memory of the fallen, the ruined cities, and the Holocaust compels vigilance. The greatest lesson and tribute is the enduring pursuit of peace, the defense of freedom, and the promise to never forget.